Hello everyone, and welcome back again to another lesson in this Android series. Now in this lesson, as I already promised, we're gonna actually write our own HTTP client where we're gonna start communicating with our web services which we have already made, and let's get on from there. I hope it's gonna be quite fun for you as well, like it was for me when I was writing it. So I'm gonna add a small package here, not small actually, another package, and I'm gonna call this com.fitguide. I'm gonna call this controller for now, and I'm gonna add a new class, and I'm gonna call this the HTTP manager, and I'm gonna hit finish. Okay, so in this HTTP manager, we're gonna have basically, for now, we're gonna have only one function, and basically when you're gonna instantiate, we're just gonna need to instantiate a new object of that HTTP manager, and then just simply call that function, which is get response from a URL, and this is it. And right now you get the response as a string, and then you can start modifying, and then you can actually start playing with it. So what are the basic class members of the HTTP manager? Before I start working here, or before I start writing the code here, I highly advise you that you already, if you have forgotten or you haven't watched the HTTP fundamentals video, I advise you actually to get back to it and watch it first. Get on with the slides and read them. Also look at the resources which are already included in the slides before we get started here, so everything will make sense. Alright, so let's get started here. So I'm going to create a private InputStream, and its job is, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-O to include right away. Control-Shift-O. Well, I think, this is quite weird. Well, import Java.io. Okay, and its job is getting the response which we get from the web server and put it in that buffer, in that stream. Private HTTP client, where we are actually describing ourselves, and another private HTTP response, and this is the object responsible for receiving the response from your HTTP request, which we're gonna add right now as HTTP post. Now I have, of course, HTTP get, I think, but right now I'm just gonna put the post for now, and I'm gonna hit Control-Shift-O to import that, and private HTTP entity, and HTTP entity is job, according to the documentation, according to Java documentation, it contains the header, it just holds the headers and holds as well the body of the response or the request. And private string builder, and I'm going to call this the result, and its job is in fact hold the result of our request as a JSON object, so as a JSON string. We're going to convert it back later into a JSON object using the class which we're going to write as well later on. But for now, we're going to just simply write our HTTP request manager here. Okay, so I'm going to have a public HTTP manager, and this is my constructor, and it will include, in fact, I'm going to copy all this. Oh yeah, well, okay, I'm going to copy all this and paste it right there. Let me really quick organize my code here. And just simply add this prefix. It's somehow And right here I will instantiate or reset them to nulls for now. Okay, so since I've instantiated them in my constructor, or reset them, whatever you would like to call it, right now here I'm going to have a public string get response from URL. And right here you're going to pass in a string URL where you're going to describe there the URL which you are actually hunting for, so the resource which you are hunting for, and you're going to pass a list. You're going to pass a list of parameters. There's going to be a name value pair, and this is in fact your headers. Remember when we were sending the in JavaScript we were sending the SID in the post method. We send the SID and as ID, you know, so the SID as the key or the header, or the key of the response or of the request, and the value is going to be the ID. This is exactly the same thing which we're going to do here. And now we're going to hit here Control-Shift-O to import that list, and I'm going to here just return null, just to get rid of that error for now. All right, so we're gonna have first to do a try catch block. So catch an exception EX, and let's write here our code which we're gonna need to communicate with our web server here. All right, so I'm gonna write here an HTTP client equals to new default default HTTP client. So I instantiated an HTTP client which is in fact describing, let's say, my Android device. HTTP post equals to new HTTP post, which gonna take URL as the parameter. So we instantiate the post with the resource which you are hunting for. Then we're gonna set the headers dot set entity, and right there I'm gonna have new URL encoded from entity, and I'll send there my parameters. Okay, now this is the I'm setting already the headers of my post. Again, please revert back if you forgot. Please revert back to the HTTP fundamentals video so everything will make sense. And right here, once I would like to get my response, I'll just simply say HTTP response equals to HTTP client dot execute, and right there I'm gonna put my HTTP post, this HTTP post object which I've created. All right. So once I make this, once I execute this HTTP post, if everything went fine, I will have the HTTP entity waiting to take the HTTP response object dot get entity. Right now I will get the whole how can I say, headers and body of the response. And right here I'm just gonna say I'm gonna take my input stream equals to HTTP entity dot get content. Now I get the body of the response. So if everything is successful, basically what we're gonna get is the, let's say, the stream of bytes of the JSON object. Please be careful. Please note here. I used here when I said the entity equal to new URL encoded form entity. This is encoding the URL. If you remember from the HTTP fundamentals video, I already have mentioned that you have to make sure that your URL is encoded and it doesn't have these special characters or spaces or whatever. So what it does here, you have already a library that in fact takes your URL and takes everything and just simply takes your data and just simply put it in an encoded way. All right, and I will go over here, and if everything went wrong or for some certain reason, I'm just going to say ex.print stack trace. Now, once we are done, once we have the stream of bytes in our hands, what we're going to do here is we're going to start instantiating our buffered reader here, and we're going to try to convert this into a string that a JSON, our JSON object will understand. And I'm going to put here my catch, exception, ex. And right there, I could even write a log.e, and right there I can say buffering error and space, comma as well here, e.toString, ex.toString. All right. So what I'm going to do here is create a buffered reader object. I'm going to call this reader equals to new buffered reader. And right here, I'm going to put here a new InputStream reader object, which is going to take my input stream, and it will decode that using the UTF-8 encoding standard. And this is the size of 8 characters. Now, I've put here a Ctrl-Shift-O just to import, first of all, for the log, yes. Okay, I'm using the log from android.util.log, okay? And if you don't put this one, if you don't put UTF-8, you will lose the other letters that are outside of the US standard ASCII encoding. So, for example, letters in Bosnian like ch, j, j, and all these other letters, these special letters that are not officially in the ASCII characters, you will lose it. So you're gonna need to put that there for that purpose. All right, and result, we're gonna have a result equals to new string builder. Right now, it's a good time to instantiate this guy. And right here, I'm gonna make another string line equals to null. And right now I will loop over my buffer while the string line.reader.read line doesn't equal to null. So until I reach the end of the buffer, I will just simply say result.append, and right there I will append a string as far as my knowledge goes here, and I'm just going to put here line plus, let's say, \n. And this is pretty much it. Once we are done with looping over our buffer, we just simply say input stream.close. So right now we will clear out from the memory this input stream which we already got, this stream of bytes. We're gonna get rid of it completely, and just simply return the result.toString. Else, of course, we're gonna get that. And as well, I'm just gonna here in the return, I will just as well return result.toString. So if it is empty, then it is empty, and we can have a problem with it. Or I could leave it return as a null, and then you can say if the result was null, then you could, for example, say, okay, there's nothing has been returned, and we're gonna have to handle it from there. All right. So this is basically our HTTP client. This class's job will just simply go ahead, query for a resource which you're gonna type here in the URL. We're gonna pass here as a URL, and then we're gonna pass here our request header, and we're gonna get as a response something else, which is the result of our query, of course. Okay. Now, if I go, and I will go in fact and create one more package, and this package job will be com.fitguide, .fitguide.om, and its job is just to do an object mapping. So it's going to be our object mapper. And here I'm going to have one more class, which is the JSON Parser, which will just simply take our string from our HTTP request, or this, from our HTTP manager, this result, and will convert it into a JSON object. And later on in our object mapper here, we're going to create a small function that will convert any JSON object, basically a certain JSON object to a certain specific class. So let's here real quick put in our very simple function here. It's just only one single function that will just simply take our object and take our string and convert it into a JSON object here. So I'm going to have a public static JSON object, and JSON object is in fact a okay. We're gonna actually, once we finish the function, we're gonna import it. Parse JSON from string, and again we pass string JSON string, and Control-Shift-O. Hopefully right now it works, and right there we're gonna actually start returning a JSON object based on the string which we're already passing right there. So I'm gonna have here JSON object equals to null, and I'm gonna try. I will put here a try catch block and exception EX, and right here I'm gonna put here JSON object equals to new JSON object, and it will take just simply a JSON string. So right now this repetitive code will disappear and we'll be just fine. And right there we're gonna just simply say log.e, and right here I'm just gonna say JSON, it's a string, JSON parser error, and right there I'm gonna have I'm just gonna put here error parsing, let's say parsing data plus ex dot get message, and off we go. And at the end we just simply return our JSON object. And by the way, let me have a look here. It's actually get message. Sorry about that. For the HTTP manager, it's get message. Did I forget any place else? No. All right. So if anything happens, it will just simply return us it will just simply throw us an exception with that message. Otherwise, if everything just went fine, just simply return the JSON object. And this is pretty much it for our JSON parser. You can feel free and extend the functionalities of the functionality of this class and add more functions in there. I just happen to have, or happen to need, only that function. All right. So since we have all that, let's try to write our JSON mapper. And right here I'm going to have JSON object mapper. And I would like that you keep in mind that this class is written as like hard-coded. Everything is hard-coded. So you're gonna have to massage this class or its functionalities according to your needs. Because if you would like to make something like a generalized object relational mapper, you're gonna require reflection, and the code will start growing a little bit more complex. And in this class, in this lesson, I'm really trying to keep it easy, very easy and flat, so you're gonna get the concept across. Feel free to start using the reflection classes or reflection, let's say, packages which you have in Java, and use these reflection techniques in order to build up a very generalized JSON object mapper. So we will map any JSON object to any class which you have in your business model. Now for the JSON mapper here, or JSON object mapper here, I'm going to have two small functions, which are going to be pretty much similar. Okay, so let me maximize this. So I will actually create one JSON to student. So it will take a JSON, single stage JSON student return, and it will convert it into a single, it's going to convert it into a single student object, okay? So here I'm going to have a public static, it will return me a student, so this is going to return a student, JSON to student, and right here I'm going to pass in my JSON object and JSON object. All right, and Control-Shift-O, so we can import our student from there. And I'm going to create a student, std equals to null. So std equals to null, and then we're going to have try, and right here we're going to have an exception, ex, and right there we're going to write in our student equals to new student, and right there I'm going to have to put in use the constructor which takes the string. Now in order to parse the JSON object, we're going to hunt in for the how can I say, for the parameters of this JSON object, or let's say the sub-arrays of the JSON object as follows. So I'm going to write in JSON object dot get JSON array, and the array is the student, okay, dot get JSON object of 0 dot get string, and then here I'm going to put in my name, all right, comma, and pretty much exactly the same thing, integer dot parse, and right now I would like to parse the index, so parse int, and here I'm going to have JSON object dot get JSON array, the student array, because I could have different arrays in my JSON request, or JSON response, excuse me, dot get JSON object of 0 dot get string, and right there I'm gonna say get me well, let me see here, we have index, so get me the index, which is going to be I think index, and by the end of all that, just simply hit the semicolon. Alright, so this is how you convert a simple JSON object into a student, let's say, object for now. And in fact, I think we are missing the ID as well. So if I go really quick, probably I'm going to need to add this private int, or private integer you would like to, okay, private int ID. And in the constructor, I'm going to add int ID, and this dot ID equals to ID. And in the parcelable, or in the parcel thing, I'm going to just add here this dot sit. I have to create as well the getters and setters. Hang on a sec. So I'm going to go into my code source, generate getters and setters for the ID, please. Thank you very much. And probably it is somewhere here. There you go, get and set ID. Okay, so I can go ahead and just simply say this dot set ID, and right there I'm gonna say source dot read int. I'm just simply adding the part where we can use this ID, and just to make everything just go smooth. And since I put it there at the beginning, so writing to a parcel has to be the same thing. So write int, I think, and right there we're gonna put in this dot ID. Okay, so I think we are good to go, and I think as well our subject needs as well to be added there, needs the ID to be added there, but anyway we will not think about that for now. And as well our activity is suffering from a problem, which is of course seeking for, so the ID is actually pushed at the end of the array, so I'm just going to simply add, like, the ID is going to be 1, 2, for example. Or 1, for example, let it be. And let's move forward. So, now in the object mapper, of course, right now I need to push in the ID. So, right there, at the end of this part, I'm just going to add one more comma, and right there I'm going to have JSON object dot get JSON array of a student dot get JSON object, give me the first object, student object in your array, dot get string, and here I'm just going to put here the ID. And make sure that your string, by the way, matches, because actually integer.parse int right there. Okay, so I hope that we are good to go. Let me like so we can see the rest of the code, and right there we can just simply return, or actually I can just simply leave it right there, return std. And right here I'm gonna have a log.e, and right here I'm gonna have a error JSON converter, and the message is gonna be ex.getMessage. Right there. Alright, so this is getting a single student. This will convert any JSON object, any singular JSON string or object we have, into a single student object. Right now we're going to add one more public static, in fact, list of students, and here JSON to student list, and right there I'm going to have my JSON object, JSON object, all right? And okay, and I will just turn null here just to make the and it's a student with a T. Okay, now I'm going to initialize or instantiate a student list. Std list equals to new array list of students, and Control-Shift-O for that, just to import the array list, and try catch exception ex. And right here I'm gonna have a little bit interesting for loop here. So I'm gonna have for int I equals to 0, and I is less than JSON object dot get JSON array of students. So the JSON array which starts with the student dot length and I plus, and in fact I even don't need this. I could just simply put everything right there. std list dot add new student, and right there I will just simply start having almost identical to this part, which is I'm gonna actually grab right now. So in fact I'm gonna grab it right from there until here, and instead of zeros I'm just gonna simply pass in i's. If fact, I've done everything. So I here, and I there, and I think a semicolon will do. And yes, I think we are good to go. So right there, I'm gonna just simply log that as well with the same message and everything. And at the end, just simply return std list. Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. So basically, this is our very, very simple mapper. It is a little bit complex because, or not complex. It's a little bit of more labor work. Honestly, it's more like mechanical work right now. But I think it would be a much better idea that we can write, for example, some sort of a generalized mapper using reflections and stuff in order to you know, not to write this class over and over again. Just write once and it will work everywhere. However, again, I'll just try to keep it really, really simple so we can understand and observe how the stuff are being passed from one part of the application to another. All right, I think this is the end of the part where we actually write our base classes to support our transactions between our web server and our Android application in a very much meaningful way. Now I'm gonna I think it will be a good idea to stop right there. And in the next lesson, we're gonna start working on making our first HTTP request to request from the database, and then get a response with the list of students. For example, the list of all students in our application or in our database. Okay, so thanks a lot for your attention, and see you in the next lesson.